is Ann Dawkins. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I got my Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of Louisville and my Master's of Fine Arts from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. As cheesy as it sounds, the first time I ever painted, I was 13. I was assigned a self-portrait, and I remember thinking, this is it, this is the thing. And I've pretty much been painting consistently since that moment. I mean, there have been little gaps in between, but I've pretty much been painting as much as possible since then, even when it feels like it sort of takes over, disrupts my life. I think a big part of the reason that I love painting is because I'm a glutton for punishment. The process is really torturous and labored over, and it's always challenging. So it never gets boring. And there's something really exciting about a medium where you can work for the majority of your life and still feel like you have so much to learn. I still have moments where I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And it's really kind of exciting that it's something that can never really be mastered or figured out because you're always in the process of learning. I also love how hands-on it is. I love that the only thing that's between me and the surface of a painting is my paintbrush. There's not a lot of tools getting in my way. And I love how thick and visceral and fleshy the paint can be and how you can build up the surface quality with almost three-dimensional paint. And that's really exciting. And I love that to some extent you can kind of create a movement and a flow as to how viewers are seeing the work. So I can kind of create these like visual pathways with my brushstrokes and control the movement and even like the pace of how people are viewing the work. And then obviously I love color. I'm obsessed with color. Typically my work will start with sort of general ideas, general bullet points of like an idea, a personal experience, and then I will try to figure out how I want to communicate that idea and how I want to connect it to larger societal issues that more people can relate to. And I start with sketches and I start with photographs. And for the larger paintings, I'll do studies. And then as I'm working on the painting, typically the ideas will become a little clearer, or they'll get a little bit more complex or more thought out. It's easier for me to kind of start with a general idea of what I want to communicate, and then it's through the painting that I'm communicating it, because I prefer to paint over talking. So I'm really like sort of figuring out something internal with the work as I'm working on it, and then finding ways to connect that to experiences other people might have had. So I'm using the personal narrative to connect to these like larger societal issues. In terms of when a painting is finished, I don't know that a painting is ever really finished. I think that there have been times where even after I've hung the painting on a wall in a gallery, I still feel like there's more I could do to it. There's things I could change. I choose the moment to step away when it feels like I'm doing more harm than good. And it feels like if I look at it any longer, I'll lose my mind. With my work, I want to create a dialogue about bodies and how we treat bodies in the world and how we feel about our own bodies. So the common theme that runs through my work is the feeling of being out of control, of feeling powerless, as though your body is not your own. And I know many things can make us feel this way: illness, pain, trauma, sexism, objectification. These are like things that most people will experience at some point in their life, and it can be a difficult fight to feel at home in your body while you're dealing with these forces. And particularly sometimes there's political things that are happening that is kind of reinforcing this idea that your body is not your own. So the main takeaway I want viewers to get from the work is to know that they're not alone, and to create a dialogue and a sense of connection around those feelings of fear or bodily disconnection, which are more common than you would think, and that they should be talked about more honestly and openly. So I've chosen through my research to convey these ideas using fruit in a way that relates to the transient nature of the human body. So my work finds correlations between the two based on fleshy qualities of both fruit and the human body, connective tissues in the body that mimic those found in fruit, as well as associations in current day and then throughout time with fruit in the female body that are found in mythology, religion, and folklore. So, for instance, like we can think about phrases like fruit of thy womb, the pomegranate seeds in the Greek allegory of Persephone, and the apple in the Garden of Eden. We can think about how cherries have been a symbol for virginity, and strawberries have been throughout time associated with sin. And I read that Anne Boleyn had a birthmark in the shape of a strawberry, so they thought that that made her a witch. um, and then, I mean, there's all the time I'll see the use of fruit emojis or pictures of fruit in articles. Like there was an article on CNN about butt implants, and they use peaches. So it's just something that is so prevalent. The sort of connection with women and sexuality with fruit. And we can also think about how the term fleshy is only used to describe fruit in the human body. I'm influenced by contemporary feminist painters like Jenny Saville and Marilyn Minter. Saville's depiction of flesh as both desirous and repulsive is something that I've strived for in my own paint handling. And then many of Marilyn Minter's paintings and photographs combine sexuality and glamour with a kind of brutality that's hard to define, but that's something that I've definitely been inspired by. Also, Mona Hatoum, and then body as abject artists like Kiki Smith and Robert Gober. And then recently, I've been looking at a lot of Kathleen Ryan's sculptures of bedazzled rotten fruit. Well, I went to grad school at SIU, and I have a bit of a love affair going with Illinois. I really love my time in Southern Illinois. I especially loved how there's so many different ecosystems. So I could explore the area, the lakes, the forests. There's like rocky terrain, there's swamps. And that connection might not be obvious, but spending time in nature is an important part of my studio practice, especially in terms of color. Um, and I love Kentucky, especially fall in Kentucky, because there's so much beautiful color. But I think I'd like to eventually move to Illinois. Although I'd like to go somewhere further north, maybe around the Chicago area, because I really hate summers in the South. It's too hot. I don't know that I have a least favorite color, but you can tell by looking at my work that I'm not a fan of using neutrals. I really want to exaggerate and oversaturate every color and look for every instance of reflected light, perceived color. And I get really frustrated with anything that's not luminous. And I sort of have to force myself to think about the absence of light in order to create somewhat believable form. And I'd probably die before I ever used a tube of black paint. Any studio rituals or habits? I mean, this might be considered a bad habit to watch TV in the studio, but I always put on campy sitcoms in the background, like The Office or Gilmore Girls or something. I find that it really helps me get out of my head. It helps prevent self doubt and overthinking. Um, so it's strange, but yeah, I think I have to slightly distract myself while I'm working. I'll listen to a lot of music too, especially if there's like a more active part of the painting. The big work, especially the figurative work, I'll listen to music and I'll move around a lot and I'll dance and I'll step back a lot. And I tend to paint 3 to 4 days a week. But besides that, I don't know that I have any specific rituals.